Hello, we are Drifters. This is our Imaginary IT 2025 presentation. Game that we are presenting is Duolatera. Quick introduction to the team. Our core five team members. We have Urvashi as our producer. AJ, that's me, our gameplay systems programmer. Annie is our creative lead and our primary game designer. And we have Singtao and Noya as our technical artists. And we have an external team of five artists as well. In our pitch, the game pitch, so this is in this virtual reality experience, a teleportation experiment gone horribly awry maroons a scientist and an engineer in an unknown world. Thus, they must traverse ancient architecture using wit, teamwork, and a portal bridging mirrored realities to find their way home. So, as such, this is a cooperative two-player puzzle VR experience. So, if you enjoy puzzles and you like playing with friends, and if you like VR games, this is a game for you. The objective of this game, you explore with your friend and you find things, you solve puzzles, and you find your way back to Earth. The core mechanic that kind of glues all this together is a portal that mirrors two realities, and we'll get into that later on. So primary inspirations for this game are games like Portal 2 and Titanfall. We want our mechanic of portals basically marries the two ideas of being able to move through a portal as if it's a door, and basically when you move through the portal it brings you to this alternate reality, which is we take inspiration from Titanfall for that, where Titanfall has a mechanic that you can swap between two different realities that kind of have subtle differences between each other. Our puzzles are also influenced by We Were Here Together, which is a cooperative escape room-esque kind of puzzle game. In terms of our game loop, players start by exploring the new room they find themselves in. They find areas, points of interest. They experiment with those and figure out how those cause changes within the environment. Then they create strategies to see, what they can do to solve a puzzle. And then once they find a solution, they have to take a bit of time to execute that solution properly because it may not be just very, very easy. It may take a couple attempts for like coordination and communication. And then ultimately they solve it. In terms of our design pillars, we want to prioritize interaction in a VR environment, things that you really wouldn't be able to do in any other kind of medium like a PC or console game. This is cooperative. We want to have both players have the same amount of significance throughout as much as possible. We want them both doing kind of a similar amount of work. And in terms of mastery, we want practice to be going on. We want puzzles to kind of invoke a bit of mechanical skill and on-the-fly thinking in terms of cooperative involvement in order to execute things properly. We believe that this would lead to increased replayability and would be more fun and engaging. Um, I'll leave the rest of this to Noya.
Our core mechanics of Duolatera is mirrored portals. We have two copies of the same environment as our play area. We call them the overworld and the underworld, with the underworld being slightly darker and redder in the environment. Players will be traversing through the two areas using portals, which they can draw on portal canvases with their laser tool. In the making of the games, there has been a lot of technical challenges. First of all is the motion sickness. In order to solve that, we make sure that physical movement must match virtual movements unless player cannot perceive them. However, we can also not allow player to have 100% full freedom in the game because now they can use that as a potential puzzle exploit. If a player moves in order to solve that, we implemented an OOB tracker. If player moves into a wall, they will be halted in the virtual wall. Meanwhile, the OOB tracker reduces their vision significantly, so what's happening is they're not going through the wall, but they're also not getting motion sickness. Another challenge is also being that Unreal VR just have a very lackluster of documentation. A lot of functions that we're trying to use are simply not being documented. In order to solve that, we have been inspecting Unreal Engine source code vigorously so that we get a better understanding of what these functions do. There's also very little out there that's involved with full interactive portals in VR. Previous work are only on the rendering of them in VR, but not on the interaction part of that. So we researched these different parts and combined them to figure out our own solutions on how portals should behave in VR. Moving on to the challenges in technical art part, due to the performance issue and the robust performance of forward shading pipeline inside Unreal Engine 5, we decided to use a forward rendering method for our game. However, there are no gbuffer existing in the forward shading pipeline, which is very crucial for most of the post-process effects. To solve that, we are finding and looking for references and conduct case studies on specific effects that we do need. We also implemented a cell shading pipeline that is completely independent of post-process, and it gets us most of the results that we want. For concept art, our concept art is inspired by The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Broken Edge, and Hi-Fi Rush. We're going for the cell shading rendering with a mixture of characters' high contrast and environments' desolate, peculiar atmosphere. We put the same set of color palette for characters in their tools, so they stand out from the environment and they can also recognize each other very quick. We also had two different sets of color palettes for two worlds, which helps helps player to recognize which world they are in. We have general curvature and glyph patterns that are designed based on narrative story, and we apply that to the entire environment. The main theme of the soundtrack in Duolatera is supposed to be epic sounding, mysterious, and a little sad. We are going for an overall science fantasy vibe. As for sound effects, it is a mix of old and futuristic. We use natural sounds and artificial sounds to make that happen. For for our audio pipeline, basically we record sound physically or grab royalty-free assets online. We trim and do some small adjustment in Audacity. We then combine and add effects in FL Studio, and finally we implement adaptive audio using these files in a real metasound. And coming to the timeline overview, the project started on September 2024. We started first by implementing the network infrastructure, and we had a working prototype on September. We also defined our narrative premises. On October, we fleshed out our Act 1 proof of concept. We also have some peripheral puzzle systems, so level designers can use them to design. We also came up with a tutorial level prototype for onboarding. On November, we finished with our Act 3 proof of concept and also did a visual effect pass on the game. On December, Act 3 is a complete playtestable prototype, and we playtested vigorously and revised it later. Moving on to January 2025, we revised Act 1 a little bit so it fits better in the game. We also started a Act 2 proof of concept. In February, Act 1, we are doing art pass for Act 1, and we complete the revision of Act 3, and we are starting on the game narrative. In March, we implemented the checkpoint systems, and we are doing Act 3 art passes. We also complete the new Act 2 in March. In April, we will be doing marketing and open testing, and also add the intro narrative into the game. And finally, in May, we are planning to do loads of playtesting so we can fix the final details of the game. And that is about our game Duolatera. Thank you for listening.